Okay, well, welcome everybody to Ellis Library. My name is Gwen Gray, and this is
Janice Dysart.
And
I'm Ann Barker.
Ann Barker, and we are all three with Ellis Library, the former reference department. And we're going to talk to you today about Altmetrics. We don't have a PowerPoint. What we're going to do is use a LibGuide that Janice designed, and I'll show you how to get to that in just a minute. But just real quick, Altmetrics are alternative metrics for social media mentions and uses of scholarly output. So basically, it's your research outside the scholarly world. How is it getting used? How often is it getting used? These are alternatives to the usual metrics that you see, like journal citation impact factors, H factors, etc. That's a topic for another webinar. So if you're on your computer, or if you want to follow along on ours, if you go to the library homepage, library.missouri.edu, and scroll down under Quick Links, in that second column you'll see a link for course guides. Click on that, and then alphabetically, it's the fourth one down, actually fifth one down, Altmetrics, alternative metrics for measuring the impact of research. As I said earlier, this is a guide that Janice put together, and it's a very nice guide that will tell you a little bit about them, Altmetrics, what they are, what are some sources for them, aggregators, and additional sources that you can use. And if you have any questions at any time, our colleague Nav is online. You can, for the online people, you can raise your hand and ask a question, and he'll let us know. Okay, so I showed you how to get to the guide. Just real quickly on this first page, over on the left under the definition, there's an article that's cited or mentioned from the Chronicle of Higher Ed from 2013. If you're not familiar with Altmetrics, you can follow this link and read a little bit more about them and how they've been used. And I think it's a nice article because they talk about what they are, how they're used, what are some caveats, and sort of what the future may be of Altmetrics. So I gave you a quick definition of what they are. What I didn't tell you is, why would you want to use them? Well, as you can see, Janice has got some advantages and limitations up there. One thing is, they are faster. It's a faster measurement. If you publish in the scholarly world, you know it takes a while for your research to get cited. If you publish something and MU News Bureau releases it, for example, it might go to CBS News, it might be picked up by a Twitter feed, and you can get counts on how many people are talking about your particular research. So it goes much faster. It also can go beyond just the articles and books that you probably normally are used to. It can include posters, slide presentations, videos, data as well, right? Yeah. Data as well. And I like the third point Janice puts on there. It provides broader measurement of impact for work. And she says, for which funders and university administrators are starting to require. If you're in Missouri, you've probably heard about the legislature. The legislators like to know how their dollars are being used, how the state's dollars are being used. And this is one way to see how your research goes beyond the university walls in the scholarly world. So I think that's a pro as well. It gets out to the public. Some limitations of it, well, some people say that the system can be gamed fairly easily. There was a study that was done several years ago where 5 false research projects were distributed on Google Scholar, and the researchers looked to see what happened with these. And it turned out they did game the system a little bit. Okay, you can read more about that in the Chronicle article, but that's one limitation. And the other one is it may not measure scholarly impact. So it may not be what your colleagues in the scholarly world are saying about it. On the other hand, the big publishers such as Elsevier and EBSCO are getting into this realm. EBSCO recently bought Plumex, which Ann is going to talk about later, and Elsevier bought Mendeley, which is a reference management platform that researchers use for sharing research, sharing articles. So you know if Elsevier and Upscale are getting into this area, it's probably something we need to pay attention to. Okay, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Janice.
Okay, I thought I'd show you some of the sources for actually finding Altmetrics for journal articles, published journal articles, and now that's the second tab here. So I'm actually going to just go right into it. We're going to open up, let's just open up another page. On this campus, one good source for alternative metric data is the database Scopus. And how many people have used that database? If you're online, you can raise your hand. Here you can also, in person, you can also raise your hand. Okay. It's a for those of you who haven't used it, it's a multidisciplinary database that really covers all subjects. It's probably strongest in the sciences and next strongest in the social sciences. It covers humanities some, but certainly not as well as the sciences. And it covers a lot of different publications like proceedings and patents, but primarily the altmetric data is for the journal articles that they cover, and they cover about 21,000 journals. So a lot of journals are in Scopus. And to get to Scopus, we'll just use the database link from the main page here and type it into the box. And click on the link. And I thought I'd look up a researcher from this campus. I'll do an author search. Heidi Apel, she's a life sciences researcher on campus. And Scopus is telling us, this is her author, a little bit of her author profile. She's written 36 articles, and we're just going to look at one of those articles. And let's see, let's look at number 4. This is interesting research, at least it's interesting to me. Plants respond to loose vibrations caused by insect herbivore chewing. And to see if this article has any alternative metric information, you have to click on the title and look at the full display in Scopus for the article. And you get the usual stuff, author, title, abstract, and if you keep going down on the screen, if there's any alternative metric information, it's going to be on the bottom right. And it's going to be this very colorful rectangle here. And Scopus is actually contracted with one of the companies that's really into this altmetric stuff, and they have the name Altmetrics. So I'm guessing they're probably about the first company that organized in this subject area, since they were able to grab the name Altmetric. And so Scopus is contracted with them, and this is the kind of information they provide. So for this article, let's move over here a little to see it all. And actually, you can, this is kind of a summary little square here. You can click on See Details below, and that expands it into more information. But as you can see, this article is picked up by 31 news outlets, 6 blogs. They may be scientific academic blogs, or they could be just casual blogs. It's been tweeted a lot of Facebook. Okay, that's Chinese Facebook, but only one person from there. Google Plus, and then Research Highlight Platform is actually something we subscribed to briefly on this campus, but people weren't using it. And that's if I come over here on the top, you can actually see more details. And the Research Highlights, this is Faculty 1000 products, which are, it costs money to subscribe to them, and they are basically databases of articles and commentary by faculty or other researchers, not necessarily faculty, on those articles. And they're trying to target top articles in each field. So that's what those are. But that didn't prove to be very popular on this campus, so we ended up canceling that because we needed the funds for other things that people were using. But going back to the news outlets, it's always interesting to see what kinds of news outlets are maybe picking things up, like New York Times, a British publication, I think Time magazine. To me, it's interesting to see the different headlines that they attach, or the different angles they take in reporting the research to the general public. So that's kind of interesting to look at. You can look at the blogs to see what blogs are reporting on this article, and you can actually, click on these links and go to the actual blog and read what's happening. So if nothing else, if you're the researcher that published this research, it's fun to go look and just see what people maybe outside of the research arena are commenting on what you're doing. So it may not, it's just maybe interesting because you can immediately see what's happening. Now the demographics, which is this last tab here, that kind of gives you a little bit of a breakdown on where most of the action is happening on the discussion of this item, and you can see it's mainly North America, but there is a little bit Australia, South America, a little bit in Europe. So that's just kind of interesting to see how things are going. Now in Altmetrics, they cover something called MinDelay, which is actually in two different places. MinDelay, as Gwen mentioned, is a bibliographic management system. It's freely available. It was recently purchased by, I'm going to get this mixed up, Elsevier, which owns Scopus. And so Scopus also lists the Mendeley statistics separately from this company. I think this company, they're getting a feed probably once a week or something from the action on Mendeley. And Mendeley is telling you that 41 people have downloaded this article and added it to Mendeley. And let's see if we've got, yeah, let's see. Well, let's go back. Actually, let's look at the, and close this out and go to just the Mendeley box in Scopus because it's a little easier to see. And actually, the number's a little higher in this box, and I think it's because, as I said, Altmetrics probably sends a feed once a week or something for this information in here. And since Scopus owns Mendeley, their separate box in Mendeley is probably instantaneous. So as soon as somebody downloads it, it's added to this little box here. So up to 53 people now have downloaded that article in Mendeley, and you can see they break it down by subject areas. Interesting, somebody in economics was looking at it. And they break it down by what type of person they were in what country. And you can view more statistics there. So, but of course, Mendeley is just one bibliographic management system. There's also a lot of people use EndNote, a lot of people use Zotero. So it's just a subset of the people that might be actually downloading this article and reading it. But it just gives you a little taste of the type of people who are using the article. So that is the information in Scopus. Any questions on that?
About the Altmetrics score.
Oh, okay. The Altmetrics score, though they don't really list it in this one.
It's where you have an article, but it shows a contact to the percentile thing.
Oh, okay, let's go back. See details.
So on the top left, I'll move down up.
Oh, score and context. they often will put this number in the circle, and that number is just a score that this company has come up with based on the different alternative metrics that they're recording for this article. And like they weight mentions in news media are weighed a lot more heavily than like a tweet. The tweet's kind of at the bottom of the list. So they have their own weighting system. And then they'll tell you, like, this is one of the highest. And maybe they don't, maybe there's something about their contract with Scopus that they don't put the score in there, but I'll show you some other sources that do put a number. There'll be like a number in here. But to be honest, it doesn't mean much to me, but you can read underneath here, it'll say this.
Show more.
Show more?
Right there.
Oh, okay. There we go. That it's in the top tier of the articles they've been monitoring. It's one of the highest ever scores. Puts article in the top 5% of all articles ranked by attention. Yes, we've got a question from online.
A question online, and this is, how did you go from the article to see it's Altmetrics? The person online looked. Question from Mary. She looked at her own citation and you can see that.
If there's no Altmetrics square for your article, it means nothing. They haven't recorded anything in the different places that they monitor, like the news outlets, like tweets, like Facebook, things like that. Now, Altmetrics really just started becoming became an item in the past few years. So chances are older articles will not have any information, maybe a few that became popular again for some reason, but you're probably only going to see altmetric information for articles published since 2000 or 2012 to date, because I think 2010 is when they basically coined the phrase or the term altmetrics. And it took a year or two for like this company to get established and start monitoring things. So, and it's starting to pick up steam. I mean, there are more companies are getting into it, and so there's competition, and so of course these companies are trying to make this something that you really need so that you'll subscribe to their services. So it remains to be seen whether this is really going to catch on or not. It may become just something that's really kind of just interesting to primarily the author of the articles, or it may become more important. We don't know. So that's why you're probably not seeing any data, is that. And of course it depends on the research article too. I mean, some research areas are just so technical that they're just not going to be picked up by the news or by the general public. So it is kind of surprising to me to see some of the articles I've looked at. I would not think they would be topics of interest to anybody, really outside of the research arena, and they do get, metrics, alternative metrics. So you never know. Okay, let's see. Well, let's go. Scopus is, as I said, a good source of information, and they're getting most of their information from this altmetric company. So let's just go look at this company's website, which is altmetrics.com. And they have, if you scan down on the page, you'll see they have products for publishers, and I'll show you in a minute, going to publisher websites, you can get information, some of which is from this company. They have a product they'll sell to institutions, which if you had a subscription to it, you could look up your name as a researcher, and all your data would be compiled in one area. So you wouldn't have to go to Scopus and look up each article individually or something. And it could have information on other things besides articles. But for now, we don't have that. But they do have a little free thing for researchers. And so let's click on the little, read more about that. And the research thing that they have, they're calling it an Altmetrics Bookmarklet. I've never heard that term before, bookmarklet, but that's what they call it. And this is something you can put on your browser menu bar if you are using Chrome or Safari or Firefox. And to do that, you just click on this page, and you just grab this Altmetrics. And actually, I already have it on here because I did a workshop a few weeks ago, and I put it on for that workshop. It was a workshop on research identity and impact. But what you do is you just drag it up to the menu bar, and there it is. And what that does is if you go to certain publisher sites, basically the publishers that have contracted with this company to incorporate their Altmetric data into the journal site, you can easily see that information. And I'll give you an example. I know Nature, all the Nature titles have done it. So we'll just go to the Nature, we'll just look at the basic journal Nature. Go into their archive. And I'm going to look at a little bit older article just to give it time. Articles time. And let's go to research articles. Okay, let's just look at the first one here. Global effects of land use on local terrestrial biodiversity. I need to click on this to pull up the article on the screen. And here it is. And now I can click on this Altmetrics Bookmarklet. And if this publisher is contracted with altmetrics.com for their journals, this little box will pop up. And you can see here's a case where they have the number 290. And I have to say, this number means nothing to me. I mean, you'd have to click for more details and read the little score in context on the left to see what that really means. So again, this one's considered one of the top articles. It's in the 85th percentile for articles of the same age and journal, and 99% percentile for the same age. Now, of course, articles published in Nature should be ones that a lot of people are going to look at, because that's just, Nature is just one of the top tier journals that researchers look at and people outside of research look at. But you can see again that this has been picked up by a lot of news outlets, a little bit in some other things. So it's just another easy way to get some Altmetric data if it's available. But of course, not all journals are contracting with this company. So what you need to do if you're interested in a particular journal is just go to that website and see if they have anything. And I'll show you an example of a couple. There's one called PLOS, which, whoops, I can't type standing up. Okay. And they publish about seven different journals. And let's, I was just going to look one up here. Look it up. I was going to pick it. Let me in there. Okay. I thought I'd look up a non, or maybe they had, let's look at, I have to just look it up, but I thought they had most, somewhere they had most heavily used, but okay. I thought this was an interesting article. And I know there's some dog owners in here. And this is probably enough to pull up the article. Maybe not.
I think you would have the one.
Oh, okay. Yes, I did. Yeah. Okay, we'll try it one more time.
You got reference.
Now they want reference, but naturally it's not showing up. Okay. Let's do it this way. Look at +1, and actually I think it's on here. They put the most viewed articles on this page. Now we'll just pick one. And you can see over here on the right, I tell you how many people have saved it, how many people have viewed it. It hasn't been cited yet, but then it's probably fairly, maybe it's just published. And then notice it has a tab here. I've noticed a lot of publishers that are putting in this metric data, extra metric data, will have a little tab either across horizontally or down vertically. And if you click on this, you can see what kinds of information the publisher is collecting. Now, this particular publisher, PLOS, which is a open access publisher, has kind of taken the lead in gathering all this different information. So they have quite a bit of stuff. And you can see they're giving you page views, downloads, and you can notice there's a big difference between page views and downloads. So you can see, 7%, you can say about 7% of the people looking at this article may have been serious about it because they downloaded it. Of course, you could, as somebody mentioned, well, I might be downloading the article so that I can discredit it. I can look at it closely and discredit the article. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a positive, although in most cases it probably is. So this is just another way to try to find some different metric data. And you really just have to go to the publisher site, look up your article or another article, and just look around on the screen and see if they're giving you any of this information. Now, some of the publishers, I know Elsevier just announced that they've come out with what do they call it? I think they called it an author dashboard. So if you publish an article in an Elsevier journal, you'll get access to this dashboard. And the dashboard will keep track of the articles you publish in Elsevier, and they'll give you all sorts of statistics on that article. And you won't be able to see that if you're not an author. And I don't think you can necessarily see, if you're an author, I don't think you can see statistics in other people's articles. I think they just give you information on your articles. So Elsevier is a pretty big publisher, and so their competitors are probably going to start doing something if they haven't already. I know Wiley does a lot. I'm not sure about some of the others. Let's see. Oh, another example of a publisher that's doing stuff is Proceedings of the National Academy of Science. Well, I guess I'd call it the publisher's National Academy of Science. They have a big publication that's used a lot. And let's look at it. And this is one where I tried to pick a non-scientific article just to show you that it doesn't have to be a scientific article. And that's probably enough to get it. Okay, again, you're going to have to look at the whole article. Let's the abstract. Oops, I thought I selected it. I guess I didn't. Oh. Here it is. Okay. And you just have to look around, and in this case, they sort of have a tab similar to the +1 journal, and you can click on that. And you can see in this case, because of this colorful little circle donut, I think it's called the donut, you can see that they've contracted with altmetrics.com to get this usage information. You can see a number here, which is a little lower than the other one we were looking at. And then they also give you additional downloading full text PDF views, and they're breaking it down month by month. So you can see when the article first came out, or the views, these are the views here. When the article first came out, kind of the highest counts were right then, and then they drop off. And let's see, one last source you might want to check. Since Mendeley, you've seen in some of these in like altmetrics.com, Mendeley is one of the providers that they're monitoring for statistics. You don't have to sign up for Mendeley to actually see usage statistics from that resource. You can just go to what they call their research papers page, and I've got that link on the guide. Let's go to that. Okay, and you can, search by title, and of course they want you to sign up for it, but we don't want to do that. And these are some of the, I'm free to click on that in case that takes me somewhere. But kind of in here are some of the articles that have gotten a lot of attention in Mendeley. And let's just look at this one. Why most published research findings are false. And actually, notice it was published in a PLOS journal. And you can see it actually right there. They have some statistics right there. And actually, maybe that's where you're supposed to look at it. Let's see. Oh, here it is, up on the right-hand corner. They had a summary data on the first page. I kind of overglossed that. But you can see over 20,000 readers on Mendeley. It's breakdown by subject area, by type of person, and then by country. But again, of course, this is just a subset of researchers in the world that are using Mendeley.
So this is research and published stuff anybody's ever added to the Mendeley library? Correct.
So yeah, it's articles people are adding to their Mendeley library, which is just, a bibliographic management system like EndNote or Zotero. And who knows, maybe since EndNote is owned by, Thomas Reuters, their competitors with Elsevier and Scopus, they may, add that component to EndNote. So eventually you'll be able to see that. Yes?
So is all this process similar to accessing an article that I have to first go to Ellis, agree to, you'll subscribe to it. So I can't go, you're going directly to journals that are giving you access.
Right, well, +1 is open access, yeah. Nature. Right, yeah, if you just come in through the MU Library's webpage and use our, the find an article, or journal, whichever you want to do, use the link journal or book, then, I mean not journal, not book, specific article or journal. So some of this information is not, some of the information you may be able to see without actually seeing the full text of the article. If you just click on to view the abstract, the publisher may very well let you see the usage information, even though you're not looking at the entire article. It's just, it's going to totally depend on the author. And of course, this altmetric.com thing, probably it should work with just the being able to view the abstract. So it's just going to depend. It's, basically, you'll just have to go and try it.
Basically, these stats are available once you get to that specific article level.
Right. You do have to get to the article level because they're usually either the publisher has them by article level, or if they're using something like altmetric.com, it's usually using the DOI information, which is at the article level, to pull it in. So. Yeah, Anne's going to show you something in a minute that. Yeah.
I'll be real quick.
Yeah. Let me close out a few things. There.
This is Gwen again, and just real quickly, I'm going to go back into the Altmetrics guide. Under additional sources for Altmetrics, you can look at these. A lot of them familiar to you, Amazon, Goodreads. You know, you can see what people are saying about your book there on either one of those sites. Presentations, SlideShare is something I come across a lot. If you you can put your slides from whatever you do up online, and it will show you how many times people are looking at those. Just for a couple minutes, I want to show you MoSpace. This is a digital institutional repository that is here at the University of Missouri, and this can hold anything, basically, that you write. Your dissertation, your posters, it might be some data that you've collected. You can store it on MoSpace. So if I go to MoSpace, you can see you can search by author, by title. So if you want to see, your students want to see what you've been putting on MoSpace, they can do that. I'm going to go in just by author, just to give you an example. And since I'm a social science librarian, I thought I should use one of the social scientists here on campus, and that is Michael Podgorski. He's over in economics department. He writes a lot on the economics of education. So these are, he's got 16 items in there. The oldest one's 1998. I'm just going to click on the third one, an evaluation of the A+ program. This, it turns out it's a working paper. It was done with a couple other people over there. And if I want to see, let's say I'm Dr. Podgorski and I want to see who's looking at this, if I scroll all the way down to this page and look over on the left, I can view the usage statistics. So this will show me by country and by town or city who's been looking at this particular paper. So it looks like mostly the US, some South Korea, and then Mountain View. I think this is interesting. Is Silicon Valley actually looking at this paper? You'll notice Castellón, I don't know if that's in Spain, it's in Colombia, but it'll show you by city where people are looking at this stuff. Now, we've found that there's kind of an oddity with this. Sometimes, oftentimes, when you look under top cities views, Rolla, Missouri is #1, way ahead of everybody else. And we talked to one of our tech people who said that he believes there's a web crawler that Rolla has, and it's going in. Some of these papers we looked at, they had 200 views at Rolla and 6 at Columbia. So we know something's wrong. The next version of software that we use with MoSpace should take care of that problem. So if you ever have a question, you're looking at yourself in MoSpace and you see there's an odd statistic, contact one of us or call the library and we'll figure out what's going on for you. But MoSpace is another place where you can go and get this type of information. And you can look at the others that are under this third tab, some additional sources for Altmetrics, and just browse. If you have any questions, again, just contact us and we'll be happy to talk with you. So I'm going to turn it over to Ann because she's going to talk about aggregators for this area.
So we clicked on the aggregators tab here, and there are a number of things. What the aggregators do is they're gathering together a lot of this altmetric data into one place and presenting it in a certain way. There's several different players in this, probably more will be developing, and they're all a little bit different. So you might want to try them all out just to get a feel for what's out there. I'm not going to pull this up to take the time, but if you click on this link, this article does a really good job of comparing these and showing they all draw from slightly different sources. There's some overlap among them, some not. They each interpret the data they get from the different sources a little bit differently. They're often on a different time schedule. So if you compare the same thing across all of these, you might get slightly different results just because they're all functioning a little bit differently. And I think this is all really in development, so it's something to look at. One thing with the aggregators, what we've looked at so far is if you're looking for yourself and you want to see how much impact have I had or who's reading my stuff or a particular author's stuff, with the aggregators they're also set up so you can use it almost as searching a database. If you want to see the stories that have been most tweeted or have gotten the most impact, they let you search in that way to see what's the most popular stuff in a particular field. So I'm going to just take you in and show you a little bit on a couple of these. And point out some places you might want to explore. You'll see most of these are not free anymore. Unfortunately, a lot of them started out as free. They've been bought up by companies, are becoming more expensive. Most of them have some freebies. So Impact Story, for example, has a 30-day free trial, and then it's a 5-month charge to maintain your profile within that. Altmetrics has a few freebies, like Janice showed you, the Bookmarklet and some things like that. There's some other things you can get to. Palmex is strictly institutional subscription. So we really don't have any access to it. I'm going to show you a little bit of the features of it through some other means. And then these last two are free and open, but they've got some pretty significant limitations too. So let me just show you a few things really quickly. Impact Story, if you go, if you click here, they let you try it for free. You just click on this Try It for Free button. I can get that. What do I need to do to make that get so I can click on it? Am I having an issue? Uh-oh. Can you make that larger or something?
Okay. Let's maybe screen size. Let's see.
Very good, thank you. Okay, this is what I wanted to show you. They've got an example profile over here on the left, so you get a pretty good idea of what's going on. So they've set up a fake researcher or an actual researcher perhaps, and you can see the different way they're categorizing things. So they're covering all these different types of products that someone's written, and then they categorize things by whether they're a public viewer or a scholarly viewer. So the blue things are what they take to be scholars, some Mendeley users at this point, or some other things. And then the green ones are typically things by the public. It's sort of a rough categorization. And then you can, you click through on this, you can actually go through and see the actual views. That's not the right place for me to go. So I'm departing from my script and then not being able to show you things. So it's nice too that they give you the metrics and then you can click through and actually see the stuff. So if you are at an article that's been cited, you can click through and actually see what the citing records are. That just gives you some idea of what's in this one. You can map it to as much as these things are being geocoded. They show you a map distribution. I think people are having fun doing whatever they can do. So this is showing you the different sources they're using to do this geocoding. So this one's nice because it's fairly transparent. They tell you where they're getting their information from pretty clearly. So let me go back and to our main page. Okay, in Altmetrics, you've got a couple of things. We've already looked at the bookmarklet. Another nice thing they do is they've developed an app that works with your ORCID profile. So if you've set up an ORCID ID, you can go plug your ID in here. I'll just take an example from one of our faculty members. This is kind of fun. It does this funny little spinny thing for a while. Doesn't usually take too long. Once it gets stuck. There we go. So this is John Budd from our library school, and it shows his different works here with the Altmetrics score for each of these, and then it's categorized them, and it draws a nice timeline, so you can see what kind of attention his work as a whole has gotten over time, where it's gotten the attention. So it sort of puts together all that stuff. So it's sort of a researcher profile, not just an article citation or article metric picture, but you can look at each article and see. And the color coding on here is looking at the different types of attention it's gotten. Let me go back one here. If you go into Altmetrics, if you go into what we do, this has a nice screenshot that shows their different products, but then here it shows how they measure attention. I think this is a good thing to look at. Altmetric is one where they're not just breaking it out into categories, but they actually give you the score. So it's good to know how they're compiling that score. And this talks about how they look at volume. They're counting the people who mention something, not the mentions. So one person tweets it 4 times, that just counts as a 1. And then they look at the different sources. So a published thing is weighted more heavily than a blog post, which is weighted more heavily than a tweet. And they look at what community is talking to each other. So a professor posting something to another professor is going to get a higher rating than something that's from a journal publisher that's automatically pushing out all their stuff. So they've got this kind of weighting system going on. The other thing that they have available that is for a subscription is this Altmetrics Explorer, and this is designed more for institutions. They talk a little bit about this here. I found I was able to sign up for a demo site, so let me see if I can log in here and just show you that real quickly. I remember my password. Okay, this takes a little while to load up. This is how it would look from an institutional level, and they've designed this to let institutions do evaluations. So they've set up a fake Lilliput University, and you can look at, so these are all the summary report for everything published out of Lilliput University. You can see all the different places it's getting attention. And then they've got these filters on the left, so you could narrow things down and say, I want to look at things only in a particular subject, or I want to look at only things that were funded by a certain source, like if you wanted to report on the impact of all the funding you've got from a particular source, you can do that. They do a timeline here. What I think is more interesting in a way is you can do up here, explore my institution, and you can break this down. So you could look at particular authors. You could look at the department level. So you could say, I want to just see what the Department of Humanities has been up to. You can look at journals. You can customize a group. So if you're working on an interdisciplinary project with a group and you want to see what impact everything coming out of that group has, you can make a customized group. But with each of these, they sort of mush together all the different data from the different articles and things. So you can see all these different places where things have been tweeted and twittered, etc. And it's doing the same kind of mapping and timelines that a lot of these do. So I think that's pretty interesting. It'd be nice if we had more access to this. We unfortunately don't. Let's go back again. I'll get another. Where's our guide? What are we using things? Okay, Plum Analytics is kind of the Cadillac of this group, and it does require an institutional subscription, so we can't see a whole lot on it. I think what's the most distinctive thing in it are the metrics that they are using. So I can find this. I'm missing the top of the screen. There we go. If you look at their metrics page, they show you they probably cover the most different types of publications. So they're covering abstracts, articles, audios, bibliographies, all these different kinds of, I think it's over 20 different sorts of publications or communications from scholars. And then they break them down into these different types of uses. So they're not just saying it got tweeted, but they're looking at usage, captures, mentions, how was it used, and then they indicate what they're using as a measurement for that. And on this nice chart, they show you where they're getting all of their data, how they categorize it. So I can't show you what an actual report coming out of Plumex looks like, but you can see it's extremely detailed. It's customizable in the same way that the Altmetric data is, I believe. So you can really get a lot of detail for that. If you wanted to find out more about that, on their main page, they do have a couple of webinars here. So this one, on their approach to Altmetrics, I think it runs about 40 minutes, but it gives a really detailed picture of how they've come about and what they're trying to do. So it gives a pretty good example. Any questions on these so far? I'm kind of running through these pretty quickly. Okay, I want to show you a couple more. Kudos is an interesting thing because it's not really designed primarily as an altmetric aggregator, although it does that. So if you come into here and you click on the About Us, you get an overview here. It's really designed as a way to promote your research. So it does this measuring as kind of an end result, but it's designed as a way for authors to promote their work. So they let you add some short titles that would be easily tweeted or easily grabbed hold of by other people. You can enrich the description by linking to different things, and then you can push it out onto social media. So it's a way to kind of organize your work and push it out there, and then almost as an afterthought, they provide these altmetric measures of the activity coming through their site. So I think it's mainly they're collecting publisher data, and I think I can't remember where they're getting their other data. So they're getting the downloads and views from the publishers, and I think they are getting stuff from Altmetrics as well for looking at the other altmetric data. So they're not actually producing data themselves, they're just sort of grabbing it from other places. So that one's, it's free. It looks pretty easy to use, but it's fairly limited. It's not collecting all the data that some of the others are. But it might be an interesting way to promote your work more, and then maybe you'd see more impact coming later. And they've got some studies, I think under the frequently asked questions, they list a study that showed that people who were using Kudos saw their citation rates in other places go up by a certain percentage. The last thing I'll just mention, we ran across this Metrics Analyst. You can see this makes these nifty, sort of scary diagrams. This is really not, it's a piece of software, so it's for someone who wants to do this themselves. It's actually open source software that you can use if you wanted to track the interactions or the mentions of your work within a certain area. You can download the software and tell it, go look at this range of blogs, and it will collect the data and can then draw these nice visualizations. So it's not for the weak of heart, I think. It takes a little doing, but that's available there. Any questions on any of this? Brave New World, you know, we're not quite sure where all this is going. And this is stuff where you have to take a little bit of interpretation, so you can't just say, here, I got this number, plunk, there it is. But it is nice that it's capturing some activity that the usual metrics used don't capture. And it's looking, I think one of the big things is it's looking at the article level rather than looking at the journal as a whole. It's really tracking more granularly what sort of impact people are having. My colleagues have anything they'd want to add? Do you want to wrap it up?
I know you wrapped it up pretty well. Again, it's just a new area that it's nice to know something about and maybe start paying attention to what develops in this area. I know there's an organization, NISO, that's they're going to work on standards, developing standards for Altmetrics, and so it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. That's just getting off the ground, so it's going to be a while before you know anything about that.
This article that's linked here is actually from the NISO Quarterly. So if you click on this, it actually takes you to, they had a special issue just on Altmetrics, so you can see all the links on the left here to other articles about Altmetrics, so they're paying some attention to this.
And there was a research article that came out just a few months ago. I forgot where it was. That I linked on the first page that is indicating that some researchers found a link between scientists who are publicly engaging with their work and citation rates. Now, you can't really draw a lot of conclusions from it, but it is sort of interesting to read about it. And that little link takes you to the research of what they did to just find a connection. So who knows where this will be in 10 years?
Yeah, or 2 years.
Or, yeah.
Or next year.
Yes.
We have a sense of all sort of where, I mean, committees turn over all the time, but kind of where current CSC committees are. I mean, do they want these? Do they care about them? When it comes to promotion and tenure, I mean, obviously there's super concern with the AAU emphasis about specifically the metrics or the citation data out of Web of Science, but does anyone have any knowledge here about what the committees are interested in terms of some of these other impact measures?
I haven't looked into it thoroughly. I've recently talked with a couple of librarians who have worked on collecting metrics for their departments. So Janice is one I talked with Katie Anderson also from VetMed, and the impression I've gotten, and then Paula and I met with division heads from the College of Ed as well. And my impression is each department determines to some degree what they think is important to count. So in seeing the reports that are put together, they're using different standards and different formats to some degree. So there are some baseline requirements from the university, which I think are citation counts, like using Web of Science data, and the journal impact factor. And then the different departments may choose some additional factors that they want to look at. The other thing that I've heard, not specifically to MD, but just generally, is that some people, they're giving their committees what they want, but then they're also providing this altmetric data just to sort of flesh the picture out a little bit. Now, there's probably some overlap between this, because like Altmetrics is just looking at the social media. Impact Story and Comex, I think, are also pulling data from some of the databases that would, so they're either pulling Scopus. I don't think either are pulling Web of Science citation metrics, but of course it would overlap with like the cited stuff in Scopus to some degree. So there's some overlap, but I think I don't see how it could hurt to just flesh the picture out. I think that the traditional metrics probably still way more, but it probably depends on the department to some degree. But that's my take. To be explored.
Well, thanks for coming.
Yep.
And we'll see where this goes. Okay, I'll send you the link.
Okay, that's good. All right, thanks a lot.
Well, thanks for coming.
I still sit before your hair. What are you going to do? Just tell them, take a turn left or right, and then get out. Just as a condition, so I can. Well, some of them would take that. They're not all real. Story profile, maybe see the difference in the description of their tracking other forms of publication.